The Intelligent Wealth Fund invests in 7 sectors, and one of them is longevity. The ageing population is putting pressure on governments around the world. So first question today, Awet, how does the YFS Intelligent Wealth Fund identify and select companies with significant market potential in the longevity sector?
Right. I mean, as we know that the longevity market is expected to grow to become bigger than the healthcare market in the long run.
Yes.
So the way we look at it is we're looking for a company that is growing into this market, has a huge total addressable market. So we try to identify which company has an edge in this market, and we try to invest in them. As I said as well, these companies we have a criteria. They have to run by great leaders we can trust.
Yes.
And as I said, we have other criteria as well, like they have to have high return on capital and so on and so on. But the problem we have is because this is like a new sector, and the problem we have is there's no a lot of companies that you can invest in. Yes. So that's the difficulties that we're finding in this space. But over time, the research shows by 2050 there will be 2.1 billion people over the age of 60. So you can see the urgency that the investment need in this area for companies that they need to do the research and development. Yes. To get product into the market. So we can see there's a big market in there to grow, but the difficulty is to find a lot of companies that we could invest in at this stage.
Yes. Technology or wearable tech is redefining health management. How is this trend creating unique investment opportunities for the YFS Intelligent Wealth Fund?
Right. If you look at in the last few years, most people are aware of the importance of to become healthier, and you can see that most of the time nowadays people have a wearable device like Apple Watch, and they can track their activity, eating.
One of those.
Right, the eating habits and so on and so on, and their steps, how many steps they do. They can track it. This data gives them an idea what they need to improve on and what they need to work on. So we can see this market is growing, and it will grow in the future. That way we can live healthier and longer. I think that's the trend that we see in the market.
Yes, and I've seen examples of clothing with the company EasyJet. I'm not sure if they've actually implemented it yet, but there was clothing and wiring and all sorts in their trousers and their jackets, etc., that they could use instead of a watch or instead of a phone. And of course there's this technology with glasses, isn't there, which I think Google have pioneered, haven't they?
Yeah, I think
Google Glass. So I can certainly perceive in the future, when we watch films and we see people in today's age holding these phones, in the future I think we'll look back and we'll think, what were those things they were holding? Because it'll all be just wearable tech. We won't need to be carrying a smartphone around with us. So interesting times, and as you say, it can be challenging finding the right companies that are going to lead the way with this technology. Life extending therapy is becoming more affordable and widespread. How is the YFS Intelligent Wealth Fund capitalising on this paradigm shift in healthcare?
Right, as we know, technology historically has been deflationary. So what we're thinking here is to identify the best companies that they will benefit from this shift in demographic, which is becoming pressure for a certain government. Like for example, we see Japan, for example, they're having an aging population. Yes. And Italy as well, demographically, the demographic are shifting. As we said earlier, by 2050, 2.1 billion will be over the age of 60. So companies are working to break through to find therapies that would make us live longer, not just longer, healthier as well. So I think that's what we can see coming.
Yes. Of course, we have invested in a company called Juvenescence, which, as far as I'm aware, is the only large company that is specialising in the subject of longevity. They have a whole series of products and services that they are producing, but they are still not a publicly quoted company. They will eventually float, and when they do, it'll be interesting to see how they performed, but they've certainly invested a lot of money so far in various aspects of longevity, and it's already been predicted that in the next 20 years or so, life expectancy could rise from age 80 today to age 120. And I was at a conference recently where it was announced that the first person to live to 1,000 years of age has already been born. So we certainly could have some very interesting times ahead, I suggest. What are your projections for global life expectancy in the coming decades, and how does this shape the YFS Intelligent Wealth Fund's long-term investment strategy?
Right. Aging affects everywhere, anyone and everywhere, and in the long run, I think what we see is as we mentioned earlier, the pressure the government are facing on extending, because this is like creating more pressure for governments around the world, and the demand or the research and development need to go into this place is going to be significant in the long run. I think the key thing is to find companies that they are working to break through in these therapies that can be used and make us live longer and so on. So that's the key thing.
Okay. Well, there's some interesting statistics I've just read here that there'll be 1 in 6 people over 60 in the world by 2030, and by 2050 the world's over 60 population will double to 2.1 billion. And it does make you wonder, with reduced childbirth in the West in particular, and increasingly in the lesser developed parts of the world as they become more developed, it does make you wonder what kind of world will we live in when a huge proportion of the world's population will be over 60, because usually the people who pay the most taxes are the workers. So if most people are retired later in this century, it does make you wonder what kind of world we'll be living in.
But if you think about it historically, people are living longer now.
True.
50 years ago, 60 years ago, the average life expectancy was probably less than 50.
Yes.
But now people are living, around 79 for male and around 83 for female. So people are living longer, but extending that as well, I'm quite optimistic, especially we have technology now and the advancement of AI. We can compromise, big data now to solve big problems.
Yes.
So as long as that society is working together to solve the problem, I am quite optimistic, especially with the breakthrough recently that we're having with artificial intelligence and other technologies as well, with gene editing and so on. So there will be a breakthrough at some point, and I'm quite optimistic people would live longer. But the key thing is they have to not just live longer, healthier as well.
Yes, sure. What is the potential economic impacts of significantly extending human life expectancy, and how does the YFS Intelligent Wealth Fund plan to capitalise on this opportunity?
Right, the economic impact is quite huge. For example, research shows that effectively slowing the typical aging process could contribute 38 trillion in value in a year of added life expectancy, and 367 trillion in 10 years. So this figure is quite huge. I'm not sure how they come up with this figure because it's quite difficult to project, more than 10 years and so on.
Yes.
But I think we know that the healthcare is putting more pressure on governments and so on. Even in the UK, I think if you think about it, the NHS is pretty much taking quite a significant part of the GDP. So the figure will be great, and it's a huge market that we can grow into.
What I find quite interesting is the ability to use the cells of your body to reproduce your own organs. So I liken it to having a car that you can keep replacing all the parts, so the car could potentially last forever. I think the same thing it sounds incredible, but the same thing could happen with human beings when you think about it, because when someone has a poor heart and they have a heart transplant, they have to have it transplanted from another human being, and the body rejects it, so they have to be on drugs the rest of their lives. But if you're reproducing a heart from your own cells, it won't be rejected. So that's why it is possible for human beings to live far, far longer than we can imagine at the moment. Certainly hundreds or even 1,000 years. It seems incredible, but it's certainly possible. And that's what makes this such a fascinating area.
Yeah, I mean, even if you think about the whole gene editing industry, I mean, for example, some people genetically they have, some illness that transfer into generation, but some companies like CRISPR are coming and editing that gene. The illness doesn't have to be transferred to the next generation.
Yes,
so
incredible.
there's a huge breakthrough is coming into the longevity space, and as I said, we are quite optimistic. There will be significant breakthrough.
On that note, I'm very much looking forward to us celebrating together our 500th birthday year. Here's to a long future.